Okay, we finished Hey yesterday. Thank you. And before we go on, I'm just going to say a few words about Asar Teves that says we know that Asar Teves is, in a certain sense, the least of the 4 fast days. In some ways, it's more severe. So we have 4 days in the year that we fast that are connected to Churban Beis Hamikdash. There are other fast days. There's Yom Kippur, there's fast day, Titus Esther, but there are 4 that are related to the Churban Beis Hamikdash. So today is the first of the 4, Asar B'Teves. This is the day that Yerushalayim came under siege from in the first Beis Hamikdash, from the king of Babel. And then we have the day of Tzom Gedalia. That's the day after Rosh Hashanah, where Gedalia was killed, and that caused the Gullus to become much more. Gedalia was a person that the Babylonians, even though that they took over, they destroyed Beis Hamikdash and did what they did, but they appointed someone that at least they didn't have their own governor, so to speak, and his name was Gedalia ben Achikam. And people didn't want that, so they killed him. And therefore, that's also a fast day, because after that, the government, intensified everything in terms of persecuting Yidden and making life miserable for them. Then the third day is Yuzayim B'Tammuz, Shavasa B'Tammuz. That's when the Beis Hamikdash was going to be destroyed, but first they broke into the walls of Yerushalayim, and then they got to the Beis Hamikdash. So Shavuos B'Tammuz is when they breached the walls, and then 3 weeks later they destroyed the actual Beis Hamikdash on Tisha B'Av. Now the day that they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash on Tisha B'Av is the same in the first and the same in the second. The day that they breached the wall is not the same, but because it's around the same time, they set aside, designated one day for the fasting, which is the 17th of Tammuz. There's certain halachas where Asar B'Teves is even more severe than the other 3, even more severe than Tisha B'Av. In what way? Asar B'Teves could never come out on Shabbos, the way it's set up now. But if Asar B'Teves would come out on Shabbos, then we'd have to fast even on Shabbos. It's based on a pasuk. So the Rebbe wants to explain it. How could that be? It's the least. Here the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Here the walls of Yerushalayim were destroyed and they entered Yerushalayim. Here the governor was killed, and as a result of that, the Golus became more intense. Here it was only the beginning. It was the first day that they started the siege on Yerushalayim. It took 3 years after that for them to eventually go in. The main point in the Rebbe's explanation is that the first step that a person takes, which is deviating from the right path, in some ways that's nothing, it's just one little step. But in other ways, it's more severe than everything else because that leads to everything else. And at the time, it doesn't look like it's so bad because I'm just moving. Or imagine a person on a road, and then instead of going to the right, they go to the left. They take the wrong road. And then they walk down that road and they get lost, they get into trouble, it's not a good road. But the first step in the mistake was to go toward the left. That's just a few yards. Not a lot. But those few yards that they turned to the wrong direction, that's what led to all the other things that happened later. When they got lost and they got into trouble by going down that road. So basically it means that the biggest caution a person needs is for that first step not to deviate and to go straight. Because once a person without learning in the mimer, once a person goes down and takes a wrong step in the wrong direction, but it's the first step, then eventually it evolves from that into the worst things, which is even avodah zarah. That's one thing I wanted to mention. It's a long sikha, a lot of details, but that's the thrust of it. Another thing I wanted to mention is that the year that the Dar Natzach took place, so as we know, the day was Hey Teves. Hey Teves is a few days before Asara B'Teves. So, well, if you read or you heard that the reaction amongst Chassidim was spontaneous, nothing was planned, but it was such a joy that it literally lasted 4 days. Basically, came out to be like 7 days, Sheva Brachas. But people were singing and dancing and farbrengen all night long. First night, the second night, it was just natural. It wasn't like other times where you have to say, oh, it's this and this day today, you got to dance and sing. It was just happening. And then Asara B'Teves, the Rebbe gave a sikha, and the Rebbe said that it's 30 days from today to Yud Shvat. The 10th day of Shvat is the Stalkus of the Friedrich Rebbe. 10th day of Shvat is also the beginning of the Rebbe's leadership. So Asara B'Teves, which is today, the 10th of Teves, is exactly 30 days before the 10th of Shvat. And in Gemara it says that you have to prepare before any special date. One opinion says you have to prepare 2 weeks before, another opinion says you have to prepare 30 days before. So 30 days before Yud Shvat, you have to start preparing for Yud Shvat, which means to add in learning, to add in davening, to add in tzedakah, to add in good deeds. But there was something exceptional that I never spoke about then, and that is a few months earlier, during the summer, it was Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, Shabbos Chazani. The Rebbe introduced a new mitzvah, if you want to call it, and that is Aseh L'Charav, that every person should have a mashpia. Spoke about it very strongly, but that was the first time he ever spoke about it. It was Tovshin Memvav, 1986. And Hey Teves is a few months later, after the summer. So the Rebbe said, right now, the next 30 days should be spent by adding in learning, and adding in davening, and adding in tzedakah, and adding in acts of kindness, niftzayim, adas Yisrael. However, being that we spoke about a Seder Harav, everybody should write a report to their Rav what they added. And not only write a report to the Rav, but the report should be written every 10 days. So you really got to be on your toes after the first 10 days to write a report, and the second and the third. And every mashpia should write a report to the Rebbe what kind of report they got. And any report that they don't get, I'm assuming that that person did not fulfill my wishes. That's what the Rebbe said. It was very strong, and was an interesting kind of hira. Again, the way Chassidim took it, it was like this was here to reinforce, because 3 times the chazaka, when something happens 3 times, that's when it becomes, reinforced, and that's when it becomes something which is permanent. So it seems that that was part of it on some level. Even though we don't fully understand, but definitely it's connected to the fact that whatever the explanation was, now it's a Asara B'Teves, it's 30 days before Yud Shvat. That means that in addition to everything else, it's time to start our preparation to strengthen our iskashus to the Rebbe, which is through learning the Rebbe's Maimar Masichas, doing something additional, through adding in the Rebbe's Miftzayim, and so on and so forth. The third point I wanted to mention is that today is the yard site of Rebbe Tzemach Hamedina. Rebbe Tzemach Hamedina is the wife of the Friedrich Rebbe. The Rebbe never spoke about this, but it's just an interesting observation that 5 of the Rebbe's of Chabad, all 5 of them, the yard site is this time of the year. So the 8th day of Teves, just 2 days ago, was the yard site of Tzemach Tzedek's Rebbe. Today is the yard site of the Friedrich Rebbe's Rebbe. The 10th of Shvat is the outside of the Rebbe Rashab's Rebbetzin. The 13th of Shvat is the outside of the 10th of Shvat is the outside of the Rebbe Marash's Rebbetzin. The 13th of Shvat is the outside of the Rebbe Rashab's Rebbetzin. And Chavei Shvat is the outside of our Rebbetzin. So it's 5 Rebbetzins, and all of them, for reason unknown to us, let something show that it's all connected to this time. Okay. I know during the summer, I know a lot of students aren't familiar with it because we don't have school during summer. We do have classes, but a lot of people are away. During the summer, when it comes to the 3 weeks, which is like Tasar Teves, the time to mourn the destruction of the temple, there's also one of the days that the Rebbe launched a massive campaign. And this is also a campaign like all other campaigns that have spread to the rest of the world. And that is, what should we be doing during the 3 weeks? Generally speaking, it's a time to mourn. But the Rebbe always says mourning is not enough. We also have to do something to reverse the situation. We're in Golus, we have no Beis HaMikdash. We have to do something to reverse the situation that there should be a Beis HaMikdash. How are you? Baruch Hashem. So how could we do something to have a Beis HaMikdash? It's basically by learning about the laws and the details of building Beis HaMikdash. And that's based on a medrash. What the medrash says is a chapter in Tehillim, not a chapter, a few chapters in, not in Tehillim, but in the books of the prophets of the Navi, called Yecheskel, where the Yidden were in Golus Babel, they were in Golus, and he was in Golus with them. And then an angel appeared, and he took him to Shalayim. He showed him the third Beis HaMikdash, and he showed him all the measurements of every single detail. So all the measurements of everything, the walls and all the different articles that were there, how long they were, how wide they were, how high they were, the gates, the doors, everything is there in full detail, even though most people will not understand what it says. Very, very, very complicated. Not too many books we've even written to explain it. But this is the third Beis HaMikdash. But when Yecheskel heard from Hashem said to him, now go back to the Yidden and tell them everything that you saw, all the details of the building Beis HaMikdash. So Yecheskel said to Hashem, why should I tell it to them now? They're in Golus, they're suffering, we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. So it's like teasing them if I'm going to tell them all about how beautiful the Beis HaMikdash is and how it's supposed to be built and how magnificent it is. So Hashem said, so because of that, my Beis HaMikdash shouldn't be bottled, it shouldn't be built. You tell them that if they learn about the laws of how the Beis HaMikdash is supposed to be built, I will consider it as if they're actually building it. Now we know that the Torah doesn't tell us to do things to make believe or to pretend that something's happening. So when it says that I will consider it as if you're actually building it, it must mean that when you learn about building Beis HaMikdash, in a spiritual sense, we're actually hastening the process of building the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, the Rebbe came out with this campaign that during the 2 weeks, we should learn about the Beis HaMikdash, and there are 3 sources. One is the Rambam, that's halacha. One is Yecheskel, that's Torah Shebeksav, the written Torah. And the third one is the tractate called Midos. Midos is, even though you're used to the word Midos meaning character traits, but in this context, Midos means measurements. There's a tractate that talks all about the measurements of the Beis HaMikdash. So we should learn these 3 things: the written Torah, the oral Torah, and halacha. The Rebbe never said to do that on a Sarah Teves, but it means what we're doing right now, just even talking about the Beis HaMikdash and saying something about the Beis HaMikdash contributes towards the process of having Beis HaMikdash being built sooner.